Thank you very much indeed for your introduction. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here for me, and it didn't take me very long to start making new friends. And we had a lovely party yesterday evening, and I think if that was a good beginning, I think there is better things to come. I was looking at my card to see what batch I am, and they have left my batch bit blank. So I think I'll make it think that as if I have been here all the time. So I am any batch you think of me. I was very pleased to hear Dr. Pandit's oration, and it will be a very hard act to follow that. I don't have such love stories, probably another small one, but we'll see. I have changed the title of my talk because somebody else has a talk later on, My Journey to Intensive Care. So I decided to steal the idea. As you will see, it is one of the way you learn things. So steal someone's idea and make your own. So I thought I will tell you, because my journey as a professional through anesthesia has come to an end, full circle. So I will just go through it a little bit. I was born in Kashmir, in Srinagar, and I went to medical school. This is a lovely scenes of Kashmir. This is the house. It's not exactly as it looks now, where I was born and brought up, but it's occupied by some other people by now, and it looks slightly different, but this was the street. I qualified from the medical college in Srinagar. It had just been open for 3 years, and one of my very good friends, whose picture you might see later on, Hiral Al-Kol, passed from the same institute as he was in the very first batch, which was admitted to that. I qualified from there in 1966. Probably some of you weren't born then. And as soon as I completed 6 months of my internship, it used to be only 6 months those days, I decided to leave Srinagar and I came to Delhi. I came without a job. I had a cousin sister living there. I just appeared in their house in the morning and started looking for a job. I had come from Kashmir to become a general physician. I became an anesthetist either by accident or as a necessity. I looked for about 2 months and I couldn't find a job in medicine anywhere. And then somebody said, why don't you go to Safdarjung Hospital? There is Dr. Bhattacharjee there. And he is usually, if you talk to him nicely, he might give you a trial job for 2 or 3 months till you find a job. So I went to Safdarjung Hospital after I had qualified as a young doctor in 1960, very early in 1967. And I decided to call on Dr. Bhattacharjee. This is a slightly different picture of Dr. Bhattacharjee. The one you saw was when he was old. This is actually during my time there in late 60s. Immediately, as soon as I met him, I could feel his presence in the room. I think he had an aura about himself. He had a loud voice, and he used to speak Hindi in a Bengali accent. And he welcomed me. He said, "Tumko naukri chahiye?" I said, "Yes, sir." And "Tumhara experience hai?" I said, "No, sir. I'm just finished my medical college." So he said, "Okay, tumko 3 mahine ke liye we'll give you a job for 3 months." He gave me a job for 3 months, and I started training at Safdarjung Hospital. The medical school, medical college didn't exist those days, and just behind Safdarjung Hospital, where the new medical college now is, used to be a cinema hall. And we used to quite often leave as soon as we finished and go and start seeing a movie. I did most of my training there, although in those days there was very rudimentary cardiac or neuroanesthesia. And I would quite often go across to the All-India Institute and watch a little bit Dr. Gopinath and Dr. Tandon. They were there those days. And I would see through, then get permission to enter the theaters, and it was sort of unofficially arranged. But a lot of people from Safdarjung used to go across to get that bit of extra training. So I qualified from there, I trained there, and I did my MD from there. That's why I do not happen to be any batch from the PGI. But as you will see, my ties to PGI, even though I haven't been here so many times, I feel as if I have been here so many times, and because I know and I've met so many people. This used to be our anesthetic equipment. Dr. Pandit mentioned that is what the red cylinder was. There used to be 4 rotometers those days. Cyclopropane, carbon dioxide used to be there, and nitrous oxide and oxygen. And I did a lot of my anesthesia with the Schimmelbusch mask, dropping ether, as Professor Pathak said earlier. This was the sort of equipment we used. There were no indwelling needles these days. Those days we used to keep a metal needle in, and then with some difficulty we managed to get, this is the Gord needle and this is the Mitchell needle, and we managed to get those. They were metal needles and we used to use those. Black face masks, Goodell Airways, red rubber tubes were the standard those days, and our reinforced tube used to be this right angle thing called Oxford tube. We used to use it for cleft lips, cleft palates, neurosurgery. It had a reinforcement at this angle, and it would go down towards the chest of the patient. The intravenous infusion bottles were glass bottles with a needle inserted as an airway, and if you fancied, you could actually inject some air into the bottle through the airway and increase the speed. But you had to be very careful. You didn't actually put it too much so that the air goes in. And I remember a case here in PGI where it happened. And so this used to be, the spinal needle used to be standard 18 gauge. I think little pencil point or Quinky needles, they didn't exist those days. Anyway, I completed my training there. No, I was still working there when Dr. Bhattacharjee called me one day. He said, oh, this was our standard. Thiopentone used to be 2.5 and 5%. Quite often, a lot of people use 5% thiopentone. And regional anesthesia, local anesthesia. We used to have a Dr. Tarawadi in Safdarjung Hospital. I don't know if anybody, Sujit remembers him, but I think he had done 1 million spinals. He could close his eyes and give the spinal. If anybody failed, he was the person to do it. The standard anesthetics were, Standard anesthetic agents were ether, trilene, and I am proud to say I used chloroform, in fact, and there was halothane, but you can see the red circle around it. It was because it was only with special permission from Dr. Bhattacharjee that you had to tell him why you have to use it. And so that was the anesthetic there. The ethyl chloride was mainly used to induce anesthesia in children. You would spray on it, and the standard teaching was that the child must not take more than 1 deep breath, and you must dose him with ether as soon as he takes that breath. It was very quick in onset. There was a great family atmosphere there. Dr. Bhattacharjee was really a visionary in my view, and I think it was his enthusiasm and support for everybody in the department that he got me converted to become an anesthetist rather than become a physician. And these are some of the people. This is Professor Cole, who became the head of the department in the All-India Institute. These two have been very, very close friends of mine, Dr. Sethi and Paritosh Majumdar. I was pleased to meet his daughter here, who used to be a little crawling girl when I met her when she was growing up. But it was an amazing atmosphere. if you ran into difficulty, there would be 4 people there without any information to anybody. It was lovely, and I could not have asked for a better place to start anesthesia than to start there. Dr. Majumdar made me give my first solo anesthetic after 2 weeks, and there was a reduction, open reduction of radius with face mask and airway and nitrous oxide, oxygen and chloroform. He said, don't worry, I was shaking. He said, don't worry, I am outside in the corridor. I will not go anywhere else, but you have to do this on your own if you ever want to do anesthesia on your own. So you have to start someday. Now we allow our youngsters 6 months before we allow them to work on their own, or 3 months at least. But that used to be the norm those days. Dr. Bhattacharya filled me with great enthusiasm, and I could not really have asked for a better teacher. One day he called me and he said, Miracle, एक नया SHO यहाँ आ रहा है, and I would like you to keep an eye on her. And she is starting new, she's coming from gynecology to do anesthesia. So I said, yes, sir. I didn't ask him whether she is young and good looking or not, but I dared not ask him that. But he said, ye wo ladki ka photo hai. So I said, yes, sir, that's very good. So she joined as house officer in anesthesia while I was a registrar. And I used to teach her a little bit. It gave me a chance to hold her hand sometimes. I showed her how to hold the face mask, you know, so you have to show it practically. So anyway, I would be always present when she was on call in case she needed help, whether she needed it or not. I would be always there. It became so much so that in about 4 months' time, we decided to get married. And we got married at that time while I was still working there, and we are still together, just a shade short of 50 years now. So although she is not an anesthetist anymore, she has also retired now. Anyway, that was enough. I had got my MD from there. I was looking for a job, and a job of those days we used to start as lecturer, and a job of lecturer came up in the PGI. So I decided to apply, and I told my wife Meenakshi that she should also apply. And she said, okay, but she didn't get a job, but I got a job. So we decided to come, and we had to make a big decision whether we should come or stay there. She said, no, don't worry, you go, and I will also come. I'll see, they will give me a job sooner or later. But while we were coming, she said, talked to me, she said that if we are both in anesthesia and a job comes up, we both will not get it. So, and she said that because she was better looking than me, she would always get preference. So I tried to convince her, since I had got a job, we came over, and we made a decision that she will change from anesthesia to do pathology. So she was actually an alumnus of this place. She did pathology while Professor Eichert was both the dean as well as the head of the department of pathology. So it was a great honor for me to arrive at PGI Chandigarh. I had heard so much about it, and I couldn't believe I was getting a job here. And so I came and appeared one morning. I think Dr. Bali picked me up at that time when I first arrived. But on my first day to work, I had got a scooter, and I came on the scooter to PGI. And before I had reached PGI and I had not done a day's work, a cyclist got a better of me, and I fell off the motorcycle or the scooter. My both knees ended up with hematomas, and I was put in some room for 6 days before I could start work. But anyway, it was not such a thing. This is some of the, I remember this round, there used to be a ramp here, and quite often I would meet Chanan Singh at the base of the, and he would always walk it up and say, "Chal putra chal, tu bhi chal." And I would walk up with him this spiral ramp, and we would go up to the theater. I remember, I think the cafeteria was around here, and I remember the Carom block because you had to go there for anything administration. That was the place you had to go. Anyway, the equipment was a little bit better here. We had started using plastic tubes, the preformed tubes. We had got indwelling cannulae, and we had got vaporizers. We had got a Goldman vaporizer and a Mark I or Mark II flow tank. There was one single ventilator here those days which I was allowed to use. Okay, it was a cyclator, and it would be about, most of the times ventilation was your arm with your chest between the knees if you needed your hands to do anything. But it doesn't matter whether you were doing neurosurgery, plastic surgery, or anything. That was the norm. The monitoring was still rudimentary, as Professor Pandit said. I think ECG was becoming more routine, or you used a precordial stethoscope. We used an occasional esophageal stethoscope, which worked roughly similar. IV fluid bags had started to come, although glass bottles were still being used. The anesthetic agents had changed. There was no ethyl chloride here, there was no chloroform here, but halothane was being used a lot more commonly, not as frequently as well, but ether and trichloroethylene were still the most common agents. When I came, I met all this staff, not all on one day, but I put 5 of these because they were the senior people. I had known of Dr. Pandit, although I had never met him, I had never worked with him, but Dr. Bhattacharya had given me a good, he told me, Pandit hai wahan par, wo tumko dekh lega. So, and I was pleased that I finally got a chance to be in the same theatre block as he was. Hariveer Singh, Chanand Singh, Dr. G.K. Singh, and Dr. Verma. I'm grateful to many, even G.D. Puri and Dr. Kak, for giving me some of the pictures. But it was nice to be amongst them, and I felt honored. The next batch was the more younger people. This is Dr. Badwe, as probably you have not seen him before. I was kindly given this picture by his son, who lives in Pune. Dr. Soma Kaushik looked just like that, except she has dyed her hair gray now. And Shobha Chakra, Dr. Bali, yeah, very, very smart, very good mustache and all. And then here was I was the most junior person amongst all them at the bottom. But I was so pleased that within a few months of me coming here as the most junior people, I felt very good when 2 more junior people joined the faculty, although they were residents here. And so it was good. I'll tell you about Dr. Kocher a little bit, but Dr. Chari was, she was very hard those days. It was not easy. I tried to become very friends with her, but she said, I only talk to Dr. Pandit here. And she said, he's very important, he's very good. And she said, look at yourself and him. Look how good he is, how handsome he is. Why should I talk to you? So there was no chance for me. So I just struggled. Anyway, I'm showing this picture only because, unfortunately, with time or due to circumstances, Hariveer Singh, Chanand Singh, Dr. Verma, Dr. Barve, and Dr. Shobha Chakravarti are no more with us. So of that time, in early 70s, this used to be the faculty that was left. Chandigarh was a great thing for me because it was my first, whether you call it a faculty job or a consultant job, in such a prestigious institute. I had only dreamed of being here, and here I was. It was my first exposure to academic environment for both teaching and learning. There were classes and lectures, and my exposure to research. I worked with a variety of surgeons. I like the good system of theater rotations here because everybody used to have a special interest. For 2 days and for 3 days a week, we rotated every 2 months. All our broad training, we kept our skills up, not like these days when people specialize. In those days, I could go and give cardiac anesthesia, and Dr. Chari could go and do ENT surgery. We didn't have to close theaters those days because somebody. But most important of all, it was the enduring friendships which I developed here. This was the type of surgeons with whom I worked. I think I will not remember many of the residents, but I remember most of these people. I think if Dr. Bose might recognize himself somewhere there. I think he is there. But Dr. Suri, apart from these two, all others were surgeons. I wouldn't let them operate on. I think Professor Reichert, he could do surgery on dead bodies, and I think Professor Chutani was a physician. We have all sorts of stories. I think I'll tell you, I worked with a very senior plastic surgeon, and it used to be the very first theater as soon as we entered the theater block. And I used to do a lot, he used to do a lot of children. He said, "Mirakur, it is dangerous to use choline in children." I said, "All right, sir." I said, "How do you know?" Very respectfully, because I was junior and he was the senior most. He said, "G.K. Singh told me you should go and talk to her." But G.K. Singh wouldn't tell me anything. So he said, "You should think of using hypothermia sometimes for cleft lips if the weather is very hot." I said, "Yes, sir. How should I do it?" He said, "Put some ice around." And so I would do that. I said, "But we have no thermometer, sir, for measuring." Those days, temperature measurement wasn't routine and all. So he went and to the thermometer that used to be in the theater, he took it off its case. It was an alcohol thermometer. He said, "Use this." It was about 10 inches long, and he said, "Use this. Isse kaam chalega." I had to tell him that it's not like a mercury thermometer, at least, where you can I had to tell him, "Sir, as soon as I take out, the temperature will fall." But anyway. Then there was once, I had a tip. It was not a tip. There was a patient. Two patients had the same name, and one of them came up to theater. I think the cardiac theater and ENT theater used to be side by side, if I remember it vaguely. And a patient came up, and both the surgeons, cardiac surgeon and the ENT surgeon, claimed it. Both were in a rush. It was about 4 o'clock. They wrote, "Chalo, chalo, chalo, isko anesthesia de do." I think Professor Mehra, if I remember correctly, was the ENT, and Dr. Gujral was the cardiac surgeon. But so it came, the ENT theater mein aa gaya, and it was actually cardiac surgical patient, because I put my hand, I said, "I have not seen this patient." I put my hand, the patient was fibrillating. I said, no. So after a little bit of discussion, we found that there were two patients of the same name. But anyway, I want to mention Dr. Bardway in particular, because Dr. Pandit has talked about many people. I had met Dr. Bardway only here. He had a fellowship, he had an American board examination, and he was full of energy. He was dynamic, he was bound, and he thought of me, here's a young person with whom he could work. And he said, "Chalo Mirakur, let's do some research, let's do some papers." And one of the very first papers I wrote was this paper with him. And I'm showing this only as a tribute to him. It was my first or second peer-reviewed paper in a well-established non-Indian journal. And unfortunately, he died on the highway between Pune and Bombay in May 1973 at a very, very young age. We had started, he was full of ideas, full of energy. We had started doing some work on ether, trilene, azeotropic mixtures. He had a very nice car, a Ford Cortina, and we used to go in it to Ludhiana Professor Frank Pryor was there, and he had a gas analysis equipment there, and we used to go and measure those, and we would quite often go, and he would drive like full energy, full on, and that's his wife Sujata, who was also an anesthetist, who also I heard she died in 1997. He took me once to Amritsar in his Ford Cortina, and I met Professor Pritam Singh there, whom I had never met before, I had only heard of. And he was amazing. He was like a fatherly figure. And it was for the first time I had seen an operating theater where two people were being operated at the same time. I met him many times later, mostly abroad at the World Congresses. He would often be there. Then, was it in 1971 or 1972, when Professor Dundee visited the department, he spent some time here, and he got talking to us all, and I knew that he knew Sujit. So I went to Sujit and I said, just put in a word for me so that I could go. And he said, "Acha, main koshish karega," so. And I think he did. He must have said something, and I decided to go. One fine morning at about 5 in the morning, I got two taxis with two very nice drivers. They brought their limousines, packed my bags, and I was off to Delhi. Nobody thought I was going, nobody knew I was going. I was on 2 days leave, and I arrived in Delhi. And in about 24 hours before anybody would find me, I was on a plane to Belfast. And there I arrived. I'm showing this slide second time only because I'm coming back to the enduring friendships which have actually made me come again to India. Not to PGI as often as Dr. Bali has come, but I would meet a lot of people there. So here, I arrived from here, took the long flight. I had never flown out of India before, and there I was, arrived at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast, and Queen's University, it was affiliated to it. This original building of the Royal Victoria Hospital still exists, although all new buildings have now been built around it. We have a system of listed buildings there. Some buildings you cannot demolish because they have to be preserved for historical reasons. I got exposed to all sorts of modern anesthetics there, not all in the beginning, but slowly, we got everything was there. We started getting one after the other volatile anesthetics, and I thought of myself as lucky. I used ether and chloroform, and on the other hand, I used sevoflurane and desflurane. I don't know if there are any newer anesthetics since then, volatile agents or not. Our monitoring was very standard. Our pre-op visits, post-op visits, all were very, very standardized. I'm not going to say anything about anesthesia because I haven't done it for 10 years. So. Professor Richard Clark became the head of department there once Professor Dundee retired. He was a reader, as Professor Pandit pointed out. And this was my first group photograph at Queen's University. We had recently moved into the new building from the old two-room department to the whole floor. And you can see some people, I don't know whether you know them all or not. Ooh. I've got rid of the pointer. You can see Professor Dundee in the middle. At the very left is Dr. Unni, who used to work there, and he has retired now. There is Dr. George and Dr. Ivan Samuel with him. They came from Ludhiana. I don't know where Dr. Gopi came from, who is second standing up, and he went to New Zealand subsequently and unfortunately passed away. So this was my first exposure to people there. I did frequent visits to India for social reasons, for conferences, to develop sources of new friendship. That's how I came to know so many. We did a lot of recruitment because I was on the, as Dr. Bali was, on the postgraduate education committee there, and we would often come to recruit people. And Chandigarh, AIIMS, and Hyderabad, where Professor Manimala Rao and Gopi would be the people from where we would get. But they were the most because we knew the people who had trained them, and quite a lot of them have done very, very well. When I came back on my frequent visits, I thought I will try to become friendly with Dr. Chari again. So at some place, I started carrying her bag. You see, she was going in front, and I decided to carry her bag. I even started carrying her tea for her. You can see, you remember Indira Gandhi used to be walked like that very rapidly. And so I had to try to keep pace with her. So this is her bag I'm carrying. And apart from that, and I'm carrying her tea. She's still moving forward. It was very hard. But I think ultimately she relented. She said, okay, Miracle, you can actually sit beside me now. And so that was a great success story for me. She even decided to teach us yoga. So you can see in some, I don't know where we are, but she's trying, this is my son, and she decided to hold a yoga class there. So we are meditating. You can see that how our friendship has remained developed over the years. I thought I will show you some of these. This is Dr. Pandit. I think it's some American city. He said, Miracle, मैं यहाँ सब लोगों को रोक दूंगा, तुम मेरा photo ले लो. So everybody had to wait there. I said, I have to take Dr. Pandit's photo. So, and this is Dr. Joyshri. I think this is in Florida somewhere. I remember about 20 years back. And I'll not repeat anything about Uma because I think she was so dear to all of us, and that it will be hard to describe our relations with her and how she cared for all of us. It was a wonderful time, but it wasn't to last, unfortunately. Dr. Kocher, then on one of my visits, I went to Dr. Kocher's house, and he showed me his bar. And I said, this is very nice. He said, yes, it is very nice, and it doesn't come easy. And he showed me his. He said, you have a PhD? I have a degree too. And I said, in what? He said, I don't know whether he said giving wine, making wine, but something to do with the bar. So I said, will you give me a quick training? He said, yes, if you pay me some money. So he decided to give me some training, and I am now standing behind the bar, but I am still, and I have even witnesses who showed that I trained, but he still hasn't given me the piece of paper to show that I am trained in it, because he says I haven't given him the money. So we are still waiting who is going to blink first. Anyway, we had a lot of gatherings together. I am showing this one particularly because of this gentleman, Phani Phanindranath Thota. I think it was such a tragic loss when he died at such a young age. I went to Manipal several times, and he was always such a gracious host and a bright, intelligent person. And unfortunately, we lost him at a very, very young age. This is one of our visits to India when Dr. Bali also came, and Dr. Samuel, apart from being an anesthetist, used to be our travel agent. He had all the contacts with some travel agency, and he would do all the bookings. And we decided to come for one of the meetings here. I've forgotten where it is, but Dr. Bali was very trendy, and I thought I will show you a close-up of his trousers. And he was he was trendsetter of those days. I used to admire him. I thought I'll show you a picture of Dr. Mehta. Sujit talked about him. I had heard about him from Dr. Bhattacharjee, and I heard about him from Sujit, and he had trained there in 50s, and I think he was here, as Sujit said, in 60s when he had come back from England after his fellowship. I met him several times there. At one time we used to examine together at the Royal College, and he offered me the first job as a consultant in Burnley, which I had to turn down because I got a job in Belfast at the same time. Dr. Pandit talked about this before. Does Dr. Chari recognize this person? No? He talked about Dr. Lee, who had trained Dr. Bhattacharjee, and that is Alfred Lee, who was here at that time at one of the meetings. When I was in Belfast, Professor Dundee introduced me to, he used to quite often go to the British Pharmacological Society meetings, and he introduced me to Professor Bill Bowman, who was the father of neuromuscular pharmacology in the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. And any of you pharmacologists here have read a textbook of pharmacology, Bowman and Rand. He is that fellow. And he in turn introduced me to this guy, Dr. David Savage, who used to work with organon and who synthesized vecuronium. Dr. Bill Bowman established the relationship between low potency and rapid onset of action, which led to the synthesis of rocuronium, which we have been using for a long time. Dr. Pandit visited us several times, and he was very good to me, always, both here and there. And he said, I will teach you how to write a paper, and he was gracious enough to put my name in 2 or 3 papers when he came to visit us in Belfast. Professor Dundee was always very fond of whatever Dr. Pandit said, Professor Dundee would do. I slowly developed good contacts with Organon, and I was on their scientific advisory board to decide on what products we should be using and to review their pharmacology. I'm showing you this person because he's the person who synthesized Sugammadex. I don't know whether Sugammadex is available here yet or not, but it's a revolutionary reversal agent which encapsulates rocuronium. I'm not showing any significant data or anything. I met some important people through my journey in anesthesia. You have all heard of Christian Bernard, who did the first heart transplant, but nobody has heard of Joe Ozinski, who was the anesthetist for the first heart transplant in Grootskeur in South Africa. I had a chance to visit there several times, but on one of those, he died 2 years back. I met the president of the Indian Society of Anesthetists once, which was a great honor, and she even shook my hand, which was very nice. I met this man. Sujit Pandit would know him, but he's the man who tried to resuscitate John F. Kennedy when he was shot in Dallas. He was Pepper Jenkins, head of the department in Dallas, and it was very nice to meet him. He was a lovely person. I met the vice president of the College of Anaesthetists in Ireland. I had to make a special appointment, and I even met his good lady. It was really very, very nice. I met recently Dr. Ravi Mahajan, who is the new president of the Royal College of Anaesthetists. I believe he was a senior resident here at one time before coming to UK, and he used to work here. I thought I should show you. I even met the Pope once. So while I was traveling to Rome, I thought at the end I'll tell you how I succeeded. I tried to know the right people. I knew Dr. Pandit, I knew Dr. Bhattacharjee, I knew Dr. Dundee, I knew Dr. Chari, I knew so many people here. I was always at the right place at the right time. I was here when Dr. Dundee visited, and I don't know, I could not have insisted, but I think I was born lucky. If people want to succeed, this is one way. I try to copy the successful people. I'm not a photocopy of Sujit Pandit, but I tried to copy many of the things he did. I tried to copy what Dr. Bhattacharjee did. I married the right person, which made the life at home very good. And I always said yes to the most important people. In fact, I became their chamcha. And I think if you want to succeed, that is the way to do. And it always helps if you put in a little bit of work, because at the end, if you don't do it, you can only succeed to a certain extent. With that, I would like to complete my journey. I have completed my professional journey in anesthesia. I have been as a patient several times. I have seen it from both ends, and it is a lot different than what I used to think. I'd like to thank you all for being here and giving me the opportunity to share my memories of this place with you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mirakur, for that wonderful presentation. A couple of announcements before we move on to the next presentation. First of all, we have a cultural program at 5 in the evening.
Thank you, sir.
Followed by that, there will be dinner at Hotel Mount View. So I request kindly for everybody to attend it. Apart from that, there is a walk at Sukna Lake at 7:30 in the morning. So those of you who are interested, please kindly give your names at the registration desk. We will be leaving at 8 from in front of the auditorium. And then okay, so I would like to correct what I just said. So we'll be leaving at 7 and reaching Sukna Lake at 7:30. And apart from that, following lunch, we'll have a tour of Chandigarh. So those of you who are interested, kindly join us for that as well. And next, I'd like to take you through memories of various people. Basically, the word anecdote comes from the Greek word, which actually means things unpublished. So we are here to hear about certain things that most of us probably don't know. And to begin with, I'd like to call upon Dr. Indra Bali for his first anecdotal memoir. Indra Mohan Bali. I am Bali.
Oh my God, no, just leave it there. They can see. I thank you very much for asking us to talk. Sujit has stolen the show. Now Rajinder has stolen the show. What is left with me is what they have stolen from me. So I'll stick with what I have, and I hope you understand all what I say. The other request which just came up as I came up the stairs was, sir, we wanted to see you in your bell bottoms. Now, how can you have bell bottoms? Nobody will know what bell bottoms are. They're shown on the slide there. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay, Professor G.D. Puri, organizing committee members and friends. Each time we come to Chandigarh and PGI, it feels like we are coming home to a PGI family. I was fortunate. कहाँ जाना भाई? Next, right. हाँ? यही करा? Yes. Okay. I qualified MS. I joined MS for MS General Surgery early 1966. And this was in January, and as a short course student, from the Punjab University. I wanted to be in PGI. My first memory of Chandigarh was in 1955 when our parents brought us to flag hoisting for Republic or Independence Day. And they showed us the plot they had bought in Sector 9 where they would later build a house, which is now sold. I qualified my MS General Surgery early 1968 and not successful in getting any job after that. And with our two sons coming along, twins, I was offered a job in PGI. I'm going to go back. I came down and I joined, I was offered a job in anesthesia as a registrar with not a day of experience of anesthesia. Anyway, I joined, and Dr. Narang, who put me on call in the first week, on call, I said, I have not given an anesthetic. I can take out an appendix, I can take out a gallbladder, but I can't do anesthesia. So he says, it doesn't matter. Anytime you're called, call me up and I'll come with you. And he stuck to that for a week with me. After that, I was sent a message that if you do your MS in anesthesia, we will make you a lecturer, which is a consultant's job. I then finished my MS in 1970 May, and I was made a lecturer on the 14th of May. I finished it in March, but I was made a lecturer in May 1970. I then took study leave for 2 years, from 1972 to 74, and I was elected as assistant professor in absentia in 73. I returned back and worked here till they made me an associate professor. And I left PGIMER under different circumstances in 1979 from an institute which I loved hugely. My studies and my training, all my anesthetic training was in PGI Chandigarh, nowhere else, apart from 15 days before I appeared in MS, and I'll show you that later. And the rest of my advances in anesthesia, my postgraduate qualifications came from Queen's University Belfast under the professorship of J.W. Dundee, whom I went because Sujit Pandit threw me out from here. I show this slide just to let you know that anesthesia was not my first choice. I was pushed into anesthesia by Professor P.N. Chutani, but I'll also tell you that Sir Tulsidas and Professor Santokh Singh were my father's classmates in UK when they were doing their fellowships and memberships. This had some influence. Two people who are my mentors. One is, apart from other teachers who taught me anesthesia, Professor P.N. Chutani, who guided me into anesthesia, the anesthetic department, and J.W. Dundee, who looked after our family and myself for 2 years in Queen's University Belfast. I show this slide primarily to show you Dr. Chanand Singh, and this slide has been shown by Dr. Pandit, and also myself in the second row. God bless. How do you work this? No, this won't work. It won't work. Yeah, in the corner in 1971. I was a consultant by this time. I was a lecturer. This is on the retirement of Dr. Chanand Singh, again shown by Professor Pandit. I show this because I wasn't here when he retired, and I would have loved to be here. I was in Belfast. Dr. Chanand Singh, you have heard a few things about him. A thorough gentleman with a white beard and a very soft-spoken person, never lost his cool. He taught me a few things. He says all drugs are poisons, like Sujit has said, and if you give them intravenously, you titrate them. He didn't use the word titrate. Give them to the point where it is taking its maximum effect, and full stop. Don't give any more. Don't go by these calculations of this milligram by kilogram body weight. And he said, then he he said, now, inhalation anesthesia are safe. Don't use cyclopropane, don't use trichloroethylene, ether, 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 and ether. He used to give cardiac anesthesia or cardiothoracic anesthesia, and as Professor Pandit has said something about his ventilation, I remember him sleeping, but he taught me the art of knee ventilation with a bag between the two knees, and being eyes down, sleeping, and then every time you put your hand out to press the bag, because we thought he's gone to sleep, the knees will move together and a breath will go to the patient. So 6 times a minute was the record, and the patient survived to tell the tale. He also used a nasopharyngeal airway or a nasotracheal airway before he brought the patient out into the recovery room. He never came out without a nasopharyngeal or a nasotracheal airway. He cycled to work, stayed healthy. He had lunch at 12:30 sharp. And he would give you the bag and say, okay, take blood pressure and pulse. No monitors. You take your blood pressure and pulse, but you ventilate it with your knees. And the last thing was that he had a scooter, but most of the time he was seen pushing it because it had gone bad. But very, very occasionally he would come on that, and even then it broke down. The next, here are my teachers. Dr. Hariveer Singh in the middle. On the right of him is Sujit Pandit, and where is Dr. Verma gone? Dr. Verma.
The one on top.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay, left. You can recognize them here. Okay, here we go. This is Dr. Hariveer Singh, my teacher of anesthesia. What I know today is all because of him. Partly because of the fact that Manjeet ji was 4 years senior to me in CMC Ludhiana, where I did my MBBS. He then started asking me to come home. This is himself, and the other one is with the residents. He was quite a social person. He told me, he said, in the morning, come home in the evening at about 8 or 9 o'clock, and you bring your book which you want to revise. You read, and I will sit here and listen. And if you have any questions, I will answer them. He then taught me spinal anesthesia, and I'll show you a slide near the end how he taught me spinal and epidural. And he also taught me how to give an intravenous regional anesthesia. He was one of the guys who could give trigeminal neuralgia eyes closed. I saw him doing it. I never did one. At about 9 o'clock, his son would come in regularly where I was reading the book and he was listening, and he would have his hand on his gutti and a thumb in his mouth, and he would come and declare, Papa ji, mainu nindar aa rahi hai. Nahi, meri tube light fuse ho rahi hai. So Papa ji would say, go bete and go to sleep. So he would go to sleep. Then comes, I was in the corner in the first slide. Now it was my privilege to be sitting in the center on one of my visits in 1975 next to Professor Hariveer Singh and Manjeet Kaur ji. Anila, my wife, is next to Dr. Hariveer Singh, between him and Pramila Chari. What about Dr. Y.S. Verma? He taught me completely about closed circuit with soda lime absorber. He actually designed a ventilator for his MD thesis, but he never let anybody use a ventilator. He would use it once in a while. My first experience of Professor Verma sweating was when Santokh Singh Anand wanted to do a gallbladder and came in. I'd just joined anesthesia, and he said to Verma, Professor Verma, and looked at me. He says, "Isnu sab kuch sikha dena tusi changi tarah." Dr. Santokh Singh had a very heavy voice, and he was a terror. He was Sir Lancelot. He would catch actually hold of registrars and say to Dr. Khanna, if they don't work hard, pick them up, throw them from the third window of the Nehru Hospital, and if they die, say that I asked you to do that. Dr. Verma had a great hand, and once one of my colleagues' son was in status asthmaticus. And I had just returned from Belfast. Nobody had, except for one person, nobody else had been put on a ventilator, especially a small child. I was asked by the head of the Department of Pediatrics to offer something. So I went, saw the child, and I saw his mother, whom I recognized. I would not take the name. And I said, well, I'll have to ventilate him to break his asthmatic attack. So I mobilized one cape vein and put him into a room, and I asked Dr. Verma to come up and help me do the intubation and so forth. So we shared the night of sitting in that place, and I told him, I said, I'll come in the morning at 7 o'clock. I went home for an hour. I'll come back and we will take the tube out. By the time I came back, lo and behold, the child had got up, taken the tube out, and he was sitting and smiling. When I came back in '74, after that he had gone away, Professor Verma, and I was able to open the lock of the storeroom. And what did I discover? I discovered 6 Manley ventilators, 1 Cape ventilator whose cog had blown up because they had run it without oil. So I got that in the workshop. We made a similar cog, and it worked for the rest of my stay here. A Blees ventilator and an auto vent, which I show you there, which worked on the discharging compliance of the bag. A small ventilator, you could carry it in the pocket. Professor Gujral then brought in these Birds or Bennetts. I don't remember exactly what ventilators they were. Here's Sujit Pandit in a slightly more relaxed fashion in Chicago, in Chicago where his daughter got married. He taught me how to do research protocols. He brought an Oxford tube connectors, and also we started to service Fluorotec Mark 1 or 2, and one got missing. I don't know what happened. My very nice memory of Dr. Pandit was, we used to live in 8H10 in Sector 12, and we could hear these voices. There were a lot of people like Jayashri Sood and Subhash Sood and Professor Pandit and Uma Anand at that time, walking at night in that lover's lane, and we could hear their voices, and eventually they got married. And so was Joshna Vega, we don't forget. Oopsie daisy. Right, here is Sujit Pandit, has always been an elder brother, so I call him now as Sujit Da, and he has come everywhere whenever we have rung him and said this is our 25th wedding anniversary. This is, I think, last year. This is in the 1978 with the sideburns, and he's looking very smart with the bow tie, and you didn't see the jacket. And there's Rajendra Mirakur, all cowed down. I don't know why. This is not his personality. And that's my wife, Anila. This is 1971, sorry, my fault. I thought it was 72 because he did come back and then went back to get his PhD. And this is myself and Anila in 1974. He was instrumental in sending me to Belfast, to J.W. Dundee. I show the slide of Professor G.C. Tandon, who was the head of the Department of Anesthesia in All India Institute. He was much younger then. I was appearing for my MS Anesthesia, and I had had no experience of open heart surgery. So I requested him, and he called me over, and I went for 15 days to him. I also then interviewed him at the age of 94 in Defense Colony for my presidential address to the college, to the Society of Anesthesiologists of Northern Ireland. He told me, he asked me if I would have a beer at 94, and we got the beer. He was having one beer, and I was having the other glass. And he said, in the morning, I need to tell you a story. Now, Sujit Pandit has told you too many stories, but this he doesn't know. So as a student in, I think, King Edward Medical School in Lahore, my father was an assistant professor in surgery, my mother was a gynecologist, and they used to come down, he said, they used to come down to the gardens just across the hostel, and they would walk there in the evenings. And we 4 or 5 guys used to stand on the roof to see when Colonel Bali is coming. And we did that because we found your mother very beautiful. And we used to run down, and whoever arrived first would go and join Mrs. Bali, and the rest would walk with Dr. Bali, Professor Bali. So that was the story he remembered at 94, and his daughter was saying, Dad, you need to have your dinner. But no, he told me the story. These are my parents, Colonel Bali and Dr. Mrs. Bali, all foreign qualified. Anyway, my first anesthetic experience was with my father, who said, come to the theater. He was another son, Sir Launcelot. Come to the theater and I'll show you what surgery is. I had not a clue about surgery, so I went in. The first case was a spinal anesthesia for a hernia. So the makeshift anesthetist was trying to put in this spinal, and my father was standing at the back, all scrubbed up, ready to go. And he waited for 5 minutes, and he says, okay, give me the needle. He sat down on the stool, pushed the needle in, and gave the drug, and he says, give me blood pressure pulse every 5 minutes. So that was hernia done. The next case was a classical cesarean section. My mother stood in the corner because she would come in. He was a general surgeon. And the same thing, this poor anesthetist was trying to put in a tube, obviously into the throat. And I didn't know what he was doing. He had a rubber tube, red rubber tube. And 5 minutes gone, my father took the laryngoscope, put in the tube, and said, give me blood pressure and pulse every 5 minutes. And I nearly fainted at that time. So I went out. I was thrown out of the theater. Here is a great lady, Mrs. G.K. Singh, a very fine lady, a very fine anesthetist, and she was always gentle. And she became a very good friend and a senior colleague. I won't say anything more than that. That's the family. Rajendra Miracle, we have heard so much about. This guy came to PGI from Safdarjung, and as soon as he came here in 71, I went to the railway station to receive him. I was on the receiving end. I received him, I received Professor Anand, who eventually threw me out of the department, but he came and I took him back, and within a few days, I don't know what happened to him, he says these noseworthy, the locally produced noseworthy connections are very smooth. So I think we should knurl them, put grooves on them so that we can get a grip. And here comes out the paper. He was, and he is still a world-renowned figure. And look at this, what he chooses for himself. I don't know whether he's ever worn in it or not, but he looks smart in it. My thing of fame was to produce a venturi ventilation injector in 1971. I made a prototype in PGI with the help of the workshop, and this is the injector principle. That's the prototype, and the side view on the bronchoscope. And the same thing in 1972, I went to Belfast, and I thought I'll do my PhD in this. But no, behold, that was all pharmacological. So I did present this, and this was published in the journal, British Journal of Anaesthesia. I'll not say anything more about those. The other thing of fame was the double lumen tubes. In 1971, Major Kumar, who had come to do his MD, one day expressed a desire to use a double lumen tube in the thoracic theater. I was doing a lot of cardiothoracic work, all closed. And I said, yeah, no problem. Enthusiastic as ever, knew how to put it in, only in the mind, only theory. And we went to the store, selected a few tubes. It had a hook, Carlin's tube had a hook on it, and that had to be maneuvered past the vocal cords. And there was a certain way of anti-rotation, clockwise rotation, and then back to normal. So we had a patient, selected patient, and we anesthetized, and he started to put the tube in. I said, no, Major Kumar, you go ahead. He tried 2 or 3 times, and when things were not going wrong, I thought before he traumatizes the cords, I took the tube, did the maneuvering, which was in my head, practically, and it went in. And everything went very well. And after that, we started using all the double Newman tubes for thoracic work. And then some years later, we met, and we were having a drink. And he said, sir, वो जो double Newman tube दिखाई थी ना आपने, क्या कमाल की थी, आपको तो इतना experience था. मैं कहा, by the way, that was my first intubation with a double Newman tube. And so that is history. I went back to Belfast. I went to Belfast and reintroduced this there. This is my friend, senior friend, my colleague, and a great guy, J.S. Gujral, the cardiac and cardiothoracic surgeon. He actually came to Belfast for training the same year I went there. I went for 2 years, he went for 1 year, and he left Belfast 6 months later to go and work with Mehdi Yaqub. And he came back, and we became friends, and we started a regular open heart surgical program in PGI, established that, and this is the surgical, cardiac surgical theater. I think this was about 6 years ago, possibly. Before I left, we had done 256 cardiopulmonary bypass cases. One thing about Dr. Gujral was he was very, very fond of tea. He said to me one day, he said, Inder, if you see me lying flat on the ground and you think I'm dead, just bring a cup of tea, okay? And pour it into your mouth and say, this is tea, sir. Okay, and I'll wake up. No more cardiac resuscitation required. Every drop of a hat. Well, it was not all work and studies and seriousness. There was a lot of fun in PGI. We had sports days, and there you can see a lot of people, a lot of senior people here. Professor Pardak, who was, where is he gone? He's here. And same thing here, and Bose, Professor Eichert, and one of my guides in surgery was P.N. Kataria, this guy, absolutely thorough gentleman. And here is my high jump, about 3 feet, I think. I used to do about 5.5 in my medical school days. So there was a lot of fun. And there was a slightly more fun when I was on the surgical side. We used to go down, we were all surgical students, and we used to go up to, through Kalka to a place called Dhalli, where you could get this achar. And we would pick up beer bottles, chana, bhutura, and get achar from there, come back to a stream, which you see now, and you will never see now, you won't see it nowadays. So we named it as Bali, so, you know, all the names are there. I have forgotten the connotation. Darshan Singh, Jalali, and Bali. Okay, and these are some home pictures of Professor Chutani, who was my mentor, Professor Chutani, Pramila, Dr. Sharma, and this is at home with our best friends, and there you are. Some more of him, and you have seen these pictures earlier, possibly. Me with a beard, a goatee beard, Nirupma Das, and Dr. Kaul. And there you are, one of our visiting examiners in there socializing, and Professor Hariveer Singh socializing with the trainees and the staff. Here is Pramila Chari, very apparent, with my son, who is here in the audience, Sanjeev, and they are playing a game. She would direct these guys. I have twin boys. He's a pediatrician neonatologist. His twin brother is a gynae oncologist in Derby. that is her younger son, and she would direct them for plays to be played here. And poor Sanjeev was made, I don't know what, he had a very small part. And I think Anish was made a donkey or something like that. They still remember this. And this is the last photograph I ever took of the CME in 1978, where I gave 6 talks, and everybody gave it. Dr. Hariveer Singh, who used to be in the middle, is on the side, and this chap has taken over as the professor of anesthesia. Well, the rest is all history. What is my hobbies nowadays? I play a bit of golf. Play a bit of golf. I do a bit of photography, play a bit of golf. And this is Hariveer Singh telling me how to become proficient in epidural and spinals. Close your eyes and take the needle through the first skin, and when it is coming out of the second skin, you know you are in the CSF. It's very hard to do, but if you close your eyes, you can practice this. As far as this is a caricature of myself, a friend's son's wife whom I gave epidural, he made this and gave it to me with a golf club. Next is a bit of photography and a bit of painting. These are genuine, but this is 20 years ago. And this is my family to whom I owe a lot. My wife, and these are 2 of my sons, and this is my handsome self. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Inder Mohan Bali. Next up, memories from Dr. Soma Kaushik. And a reminder once again about the cultural program at 5 p.m. in the evening, followed by dinner at Hotel Mount View. And after this, there'll be Dr. G.S. Kocher with his memories, and followed by a departmental video demonstration. And we'll have a group photograph after that, so please stay on for that and the rest of the program as well. As for now, Dr. Soma Kaushik.
I don't have any slides or anything, okay.
Maybe you want to...
I'm sure. Well, after listening to the 3 stalwarts, I find it a little difficult for me to talk. And in fact, I'm feeling very nervous. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Puri and his team for organizing this meet and giving me the opportunity to share some of interesting experiences with me. I wanted to become a physician, but God had willed otherwise, and instead I became an anesthesiologist. When we were students, anesthesia was considered a very inferior specialty, and only those students who had failed many times or who could not get into any other specialty, they joined anesthesia. My first encounter with anesthesia was when I was doing a house job in gynae and obstetrics. I was planning to go to UK, and for British medical registration, it was essential to have done house job in at least 2 specialties out of medicine, surgery and gynae. I had already done 1 year in medicine, so I decided to take up gynae and obstetrics. One day, I and other classmate Chaya were asked to do a tubal ligation. Another friend, Usha, was asked to give anesthesia. None of us had any idea about what anesthesia was. After struggling with the patient for a long time, Usha was able to put the patient to sleep using open drop ether, and we too started to do the surgery. A short while later, I saw that the tube was looking grey and told our colleague, but she said, it's okay, go ahead. And we did. Then the tubes got bluer and then became black. We told Usha once again, and to our horror, the patient had stopped breathing. She had no pulse nor any heartbeat. Immediately a senior person was called from the next door theatre. He also did not know what to do. So the senior most person, a reader in the department, was called. He came to the door of the OT and he looked at the patient from a distance, shrugged his shoulders, bent his neck slightly and said, "Arey, ye to mar gayi." And that was the end of the patient, anesthesia, and all three of us. Nobody gave any oxygen, and perhaps no one knew how to resuscitate and do cardiac massage. No doubt, the three of us got a thorough dressing down from our head of the department and were literally skinned. We vowed never to take up this specialty where the life was so uncertain and the margin of safety between life and death was so small. But then man proposes and God disposes. I went to UK, worked in medicine for 1 year. Well, due to various reasons, I had to take up anesthesia and joined at Alumni-cum-CME Hospital at Londonderry. This is the second biggest hospital in Ireland. My first day in anesthesia at this hospital was a complete disaster. And indeed, I was so scared that till I superannuated, I never dared leaving sites of patients till they recovered fully. Perhaps this was the reason that I have had hardly any mishaps in the theatres. I was posted at the ENT operation theatre with Colette Murray, who was just 1 year senior to me and the chief consultant of anesthesia. It was a standard practice at this place to post the newcomers in ENT OT, where a large number of short procedures were performed so that the new resident learned anesthesia quickly. The ENT surgeon was very nice. He had lived in India for many years and did not mind if there were delays in starting his cases because of newcomers training. We used to do at least 7 to 8 cases of tonsillectomies every day, and we learned the technique of endotracheal intubation very, very quickly. Well, on my first day to this, or to my ill luck, or perhaps my good luck, since I learned a very important lesson on that day. An elderly patient was undergoing laryngectomy for carcinoma of larynx. During this surgery, as we all know, there may be excessive bleeding, and therefore many methods are used to reduce it. One of the methods is hypertensive anesthesia. The patient had been put to sleep and was attached to various monitors. A new drug, trophonium, which had been recently introduced, was being used in the drip to lower the blood pressure and thus minimize the chances of excessive bleeding. There was great excitement in the OT. A number of doctors had come to see the surgery as well as the demonstration of the drug. As this was not the type of surgery which was done routinely. Most of the consultants were busy observing the surgery and in the process forgot to keep an eye on the patient and to control the flow of this new drug. With the result, the patient suffered a cardiac arrest. By the time they realized it was too late, the patient could not be revived with any amount of resuscitation. Again, this really scared me and I did want to run away, but my fate had been sealed. After working in UK for almost 7 years, we came to PGI. The department was small with only 5 faculty members. There were very few doctors in the department. The place was very friendly and Dr. G.K. Singh was the most helpful person in the department. Dr. Chandan Singh was the senior most person, but the department was headed by a surgeon. Only 4th floor OTs were in use at that time. For the first week or two, Dr. Chandan Singh asked me to just observe the working and get used to the routine. 2 to 3 days later, one of the consultants took me to plastic surgery theatre and said, "Madam, you must have intubated many patients with the help of laryngoscope. Here, I have a patient who has undergone hemimandibulectomy. His mouth is wide open. You can even see the larynx. I would like you to intubate this patient without a laryngoscope." What I will do is I'll pull the tongue out with the help of McGill forceps and you can then intubate. So saying, he gave a thiopentone and scoline and handed me the endotracheal tube and said, "Tusi annu phado." Having come from a Hindi-speaking state, phado for me meant to tear, and this is exactly what happened. In his eagerness to demonstrate this technique and to pull out the tongue with McGill forceps, he instead picked up a pair of angled scissors and while pulling the tongue, divided it into two pieces from the middle, which now looked like a snake's tongue. Anyway, I quickly picked up the laryngoscope and intubated. By now, there was great commotion in the theatre and a verbal duel had started between the surgeon and the anesthetist. Anyways, after the surgeon was pacified by his colleagues, the tongue had to be repaired first before the reconstruction of cheek could be done. There have been many interesting incidences. I can narrate only few of them. On one Saturday, a senior surgeon came to me personally and said, "I have a private patient who is bleeding from hemorrhoids. I want to ligate them. He is fasting. It's a short procedure and I'll take half an hour. I request you to help." I find it difficult to refuse such requests. As you all know, it is not easy to find help on Saturdays, and I also could not find any resident to help me. Anyways, I thought it was a short procedure and I could manage with the help of OT technicians. Since it was a short procedure, I used a mask to anesthetize. As promised, surgery was over in half an hour. But now we come to the most important part. The staff nurse was asked to provide a bandage, and the girl handed him a T bandage. He said, "I do not want this. I want a bandage which is 6 inches wide and 36 inches long." "But sir, we don't have such a bandage," said the nurse. "I don't care. I want a bandage which is 6 inches wide and 36 inches long." The staff nurse had no clue. So the sister in charge was summoned. She also showed her inability to give such a bandage. He said, "I don't care. You beg, borrow, or steal. I want a bandage which is 6 inches wide and 36 inches long." So a white bed sheet was brought. It was cut into desired measurements, but unfortunately, nurse again made it into a T bandage. By now, the surgeon was fuming and he said, I did not ask for a T bandage. I wanted a bandage which is 6 inches wide and 36 inches long." So another sheet was brought and cut into desired length and breadth, and finally the drama came to an end. I'm sure that you can imagine by that time my hands had gone into cramps. Our head of the department was a very nice person and he was very kind too. May God rest his soul in peace. But he was totally averse to anyone taking leave. It though is a different matter that when some resident disappeared without taking leave, he never came to know. Once, 2 of our residents fell in love and decided to get married. They went to him with the wedding invitation and the leave application. He said, "I cannot give you leave on same dates. We are short of people in the department," and sanctioned them leave on 2 different dates. From PGI, I went to SGPGI Lucknow as professor and head of the department. My welcome to Lucknow is also worth mentioning. Soon after joining, I was taken by the faculty members for the round of hospital and then brought to the OT lounge. All my faculty members, about 20 of them, and some senior residents, they were there. There were some other members from the other surgical departments also. One of the lecturers from my department approached me and said, "Madam, chai lengi ya coffee?" I said, "Up to you." He said, सबके लिए मैं समोसे और गुलाब जामुन भी मंगा रहा हूँ. So the gulab jamun, samosa and tea was brought, and everybody had the tea and eatables, and everyone really enjoyed. They left the lounge. 3 days later, our coffee room attendant Ramchandran came to me and said, "Madam, paise de dijiye." I said, "कौन से पैसे?" I said, "कौन से पैसे?" सबने बोला है कि चाय समोसे के पैसे तो मैडम ही देंगी. So I had been ragged in the typical Lucknowi style, college style. I must admit, there have been many more hilarious incidences, but I cannot go on forever. And I was very happy that I had spent my best years of life in SGPGI, and I was even able to start, first time in India, specialized courses in cardiac and neuroanesthesia. I just cannot go on forever, and thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those wonderful stories. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. G.S. Kochar, former additional professor at PGI, and he's also the former president of the Indian Medical Association and administrative director at the Chandigarh Golf Club. I'd like to welcome sir on stage.
Good afternoon. You all must be very hungry now. I won't take more than 5 minutes, don't worry. And before I joined PGI, I was in Rangoon, because my father was an army doctor. He was posted out to Rangoon. So I did my graduation from Rangoon University and did my MBBS from Rangoon Medical College. And in fact, Rangoon is just like Bangkok, very vibrant city and all. I was keen to proceed to America, but my Mamaji was in Chandigarh. So he wanted me to come and settle in Chandigarh. So this is how all we came to Chandigarh in December 1968. That time there was a selection going on in PGI, residency selection. So I was keen for the ENT surgeon. But my Mamaji son-in-law was relative of Dr. Harveer Singh. So Dr. Harveer Singh took me to ENT surgeon Dr. Mehra for my selection. And Dr. Mehra said there are 7 candidates and only 1 job. And that too also pressure from the Punjab, Haryana High Court and judges and ministers. So no chance to getting ENT. Why don't you take him to anesthesia? He told Dr. Harveer Singh. So he said, "Do you want to join?" Maybe I don't mind. Let me try for 6 months. If I like it, I'll continue. But after joining 6 months, there's no looking back. I like the department so much. I learned a lot during my house job days, because practical was really, I learned a lot during practical emergency house job duties. Because there hardly any staff, and I was doing 24-hour emergency. Sometimes even every day emergency and house job. Then learn a lot of practical, plus teaching, of course, Dr. Pandit was there, Dr. Harveer Singh was there, Dr. Verma was there. Good medical academic coverage also I had it. So after that, I got a thesis under Dr. Verma. That was a tough subject. Changes in pyruvic and lactic acid in dogs under different anesthetic agent, like trilene, halothane, and ether, and all this thing. I had a tough time going to the animal house, giving the IV injections, putting a tube with long blades, and taking a sample to the bio department. Anyway, I passed my exam after that. Then after 1 year, I became a consultant in PGI only. So in consultant, I was very gel with my resident doctors. We used to organize good picnic and everything, go out of Chandigarh to Jail or some Panjore and all this thing. A good time with us. And The thing is, I used to play tennis also with Dr. Batra. Then I started a golf also. And my main vacation center was Sanjeevani Hostel. Sorry to say. So after that, and I was there for nearly 15 years as a consultant, and I was a tetanus in charge for some nearly 5 years during that period. And I have come across one very serious grade 3 tetanus patient, and mortality is so high, but that patient was from Ambala, lady, telephone operator. She had a grade 3 tetanus. She had a multiple heart attack in the emergency ward. I took her to the tetanus unit. She was on ventilator for 3 months. And she was recovering very well. So just before 3-4 days before Diwali, I told my resident, let's wean off slowly. I want to reverse on Diwali night. So good enough, we reversed on that day. She was so happy and all. She still ring up and send messages to me every Diwali from Ambala. And myself and Dr. Bali used to set the papers those days, if you remember. And my resident doctor, they know where Dr. Kocher is there. They invite me to the hostel for the glass of beer, just to get some sort of tips from them. Then Dr. Gumba, already Mrs. Soma Kaushik told about Dr. Gumba, Mrs. Gumba marriage. In fact, that time I was and Dr. Verma was there, and Dr. Gumba went to Dr. Verma for the leave. He said, you can't go together, go one by one. That was a dialogue in front of me. Then next day he was not well, he didn't come. He came to me and I said, you go and enjoy for this holidays to this Kathmandu. So they went for 1 week, had a honeymoon, then they came back. So there's one incident in Karachi. We went for the conference. There was about 10 sort of anesthetists from India. We went to the Karachi from Delhi. And on the airport, Pathanji came to me, one Pathanji. Doctor Sahab, Sardaji, he said, Sardaji, tusi scotch leke aayo? They are not allowed to carry the bottles of scotch and all. I said, I got 4 bottles. बोलता एक bottle मैंने दे दो बोलते. So he got 1 bottle from that time, and we had a good time in the Lahore and Karachi hotels and all. We're having our own drinks, enjoying, because they don't serve liquor in the conference halls. Even at Lahore in the conference, and when we were in the first inauguration session, the CM brother was the chief guest. And after that, he came to me, Saji, theek thak ho, any help from me? I said, I don't have visa from other small cities like Panna, Punjab Sahib and all. He said, don't worry, take my car, take official car. He gave me the car. We went around and 2-3 people, we had a good time there. Then after that, on Sunday, it was a holiday, and head of the Latif Hospital, he's a golfer. He said, Doc, you want to play golf? Okay, let's play. So we went to the Lahore, Karachi Golf Club. We had a round of golf, and the first, I purchased the shoes and all from the pro shop. Then on the first tee off, I said, I am very fond of high stake. A little stunned. What do you want to play for high stake? You want in dollar or you want a Karachi rupees or no? I said, let's play for Kashmir. So anyway, I'm blessed with my good family. I got 2 daughters and 1 son. One daughter is in England. She's in Canada. She's a dentist. One son is, he went to medical college for 1 year. He didn't like it. So he is now in real estate consultant and tax consultant. He's doing it. And one daughter is in film line, Punjabi movies actress and the singer. And I got one grandson who is a very good golfer, #1 India in his age group. He played as an amateur till last year. Now he's a turned pro now. He played a very good tournament last week only in Chandigarh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kocher. Now, I'd like to invite all the guests who just spoke, and I'd like to invite seniors to felicitate them. So starting off, I'd like to invite Dr. Sujit Pandit to felicitate Dr. Rajendra Merakor. I'd also like to invite Dr. Pramila Chari to felicitate Dr. Inder Mohan Bali. We'd like to call you up on stage if that is possible. Also, I'd like to call Dr. Jyotsana Vig to felicitate Dr. Soma Kaushik. Please kindly come up on stage. Okay. So maybe the opposite sideways so that everybody can see.
Side.
The other side.
Are you not?
Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Pramila Chari to felicitate Dr. I.M. Bali. I'd also like to invite Professor Y.K. Batra to felicitate Dr. G.S. Kochar. So that we can take a photo, group photo के लिए we'll. Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Jyotsana Vig to felicitate Dr. Soma Kaushik. I'd like to everybody to stay around so that we can take a group picture at the end. Okay. Next, I'd like to request Dr. Y.K. Batra to felicitate Dr. G.S. Kochar. A big round of applause for all these faculty and thank you so much, everyone. Now I'd like to announce that we're going to go in front of the Chiron block for the group photo. So I'd request everybody to please head on to Chiron block. Followed by that, we'll break for lunch.
We would like you to all please make it a little hurried affair because we are behind time. So we had kept around 25 minutes for the photograph. If we walk fast, we can save some 10 minutes.